Juwan, I guess let's start with the Michigan State game. And what did you feel in that when you guys went up there and beat them? What did you feel when you walked away from that, maybe watched the film, was like, okay, these were the things that were different for us in this game?
I think everybody just played hard. Nobody really was trying to, think too much logically about the game. Everybody was just out there trying to play their hardest, defensively, offensively, just going out there and doing what we practice every day.
Juwan, Coach was talking about just the accountability level in practice going up the last week or two. I guess where did that start? Where did that come from? Where did that need to raise that accountability start?
Honestly, there's no defining moment where it just happened. It was just one practice, and I think Red Team had won like 6 or 7 straight segments, and then the next day we were talking about the locker room, and then after that, practices were just ultra competitive. Like nobody wanted to lose, nobody wanted to run. So I think it was no defining moment. It was just, just something that just happened.
Juwan, what's it like going up against race in practice?
It's like looking at myself almost. I think I was the same way coming in, and just going out there playing hard, not really looking to score. Which we all got onto him for that because he's able to score. But at the same time, he just you know what you're going to get from him. He's going to play defense, he's going to get rebounds, and he's going to do all the little things that nobody really wants to do.
I guess kind of on that standpoint, whether it's a guy like Race or a guy like Clifton, how much do you maybe try and take hold of these younger players, kind of mold them after yourself, and try and model their game the same way that you were brought up through the program?
I wouldn't say that I try to make them model their games the same way as me, but I just try to tell them that you're not going to come in and just be an all-star immediately. I told them that they were going to have to work for it, and that they had to find basically what they're good at and just make it something that's undeniable by the coaching staff. And in Race's case, it was just that he's going to play defense and he's going to get rebounds. And I think they couldn't ignore it, and as you can see in the game, he was doing just those things.
Since JD wants us asking about senior day stuff, I wanted to kind of move a little bit in that direction. I know we've talked about this through the years, but give me a few examples of growing up, in a military household with parents who sort of instilled that in you. What were some of the big takeaways, or what were some of the moments where that sort of became who you are as a person?
Well, growing up in a military family, things only had to get asked one time. After that, there wasn't going to be anything more asked. It was just going to be discipline. But at the same time, I think that helped me in every aspect of life, just being able to listen to the directions and carry those things out. And then at the same time, just being able to accept all types of criticism, because I watched my mom and how she interacted with some of her privates at PT and things like that. And if any of them stepped out of line, there was like a drill where they had to pretty much like subdue her, and she had on boxing gloves, and so she just got to take off on them as much as she wanted, and they had to subdue her without punching back. And so I just kind of learned just from watching those things where if you step out of line, then you'll be dealt with. And I think just growing up, I really just never tried to step out of line, and that just something my mom instilled and dad instilled in me. And I think it's helped me like in class, just in life, and basketball, with everything I do.
And there were times, correct me if I'm wrong, you were like in middle school, or maybe you got into junior high or high school, but you went out there and did PT with guys sometimes?
That was in elementary school, but yeah, I was doing that all the way up until like 7th grade when I started playing football and basketball for the school. And it would be like 4 a.m., 5 a.m., and we go out there, and I wouldn't run as much as they did, but I would try to keep up with them and just going through all the physical things they were doing. And I just realized like what camaraderie can do for a unit, and just seeing how they were all up at like 4 a.m. and nobody really wanted to be up, but they just were out there laughing, talking, having a good time while doing it. And that just made me realize things that we learned later in life, early in life, in my case.
And your family was stationed where at that point in time when you were going out and doing that PT with those guys?
It was Texas at first, Fort Hood, Texas, and then Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Just any fond memories or fondest memory from your time here with the program, favorite game or moment or anything like that?
My favorite game would probably be freshman year against Wisconsin here. I remember all the coaches and players, especially Yogi and Troy, telling me that was my best game. And I remember looking at them crazy, because I remember I played 20 minutes, the most I played all freshman year. I had 0 points, like 2 rebounds, 1 block, and 5 fouls. So I was confused. I was like, how is that my best game? And they were telling me like, because of the way I guarded Ethan Happ and Najee Hayes that day, really helped us come through with a win. And that's kind of when I realized that it's not all about, you know, scoring, rebounding, and things like that. It's just about doing your job.
How do you want to be remembered?
Just want to be, you know, remembered as somebody that never gave up, regardless of who we were going against, what we were going against, or anything like that. I never gave up, and every time I went out there, people knew what they were going to get from me, and I was going to give 110% every night.
Just kind of going back onto the note from your childhood about, you know, understanding discipline, understanding kind of like, you know, to follow orders. You think maybe that helped you more in kind of a pressure cooked environment like Indiana where you're playing basketball compared to if you had gone elsewhere with your college decision?
Yeah, I think it did. Again, I think it applies to all aspects of my life, but at the same time, just, you know, dealing with the pressures of being here, you know, you hear it every day, regardless of where you're at, of how important it is being a basketball player here. And I really don't let those things get to me, and I know it's a lot of pressure, but I think just, you know, I'm just putting a ball in the hoop. You know, the pressure those guys felt every day, having to protect their country, things like that, you know, it's nothing compared to what they were doing. So I just take it and look at it from a different perspective.
He's kind of on that too. You're a guy who's gone through some coaching changes, gone through some injury stuff. Has there been like a lowest point or a most difficult part of your Indiana career now that you kind of look back on the past few years?
Yeah, it definitely was. Pretty much any time my shoulder came out, I never knew if it was going to go back in sometimes. You know, I think anytime that happened, I was really at a low point. And then I remember Michigan in the Big Ten tournament in Indy freshman year. I was in the game, and it pretty much came out. Anytime I went to stride and my left arm went back, it came out. And I remember sitting there talking to Coach Green, worried about the surgery that was coming up. And I remember telling him that I wasn't too sure about it. I told him I'd rather just deal with it coming out all the time to get the surgery and then it not fix the problem, you know. And then, you know, just thinking back to that was probably the lowest point I was at. But I think after the surgery, you know, with all the confidence from the doctors, things like that, I think I was really just in a better place mentally, and I think that's helped me going forward.
Juwan, you talked about your favorite memory, kind of that Wisconsin game freshman year and how you guarded Happ. I mean, those memories kind of come back up before the game the other day and maybe kind of remind you of kind of a similar game where, you know, you did foul up, but maybe the stuff you did on the court to kind of help your team to win in the minutes you played.
Yeah, I kind of do that with every game. You know, if we played the team before, I definitely think of moments I've had against those teams, whether it was good or bad, and I think I don't try to let those memories determine what I'll do out there, because, you know, it's a new game, every player's better, and so I just tried to go out there and, you know, really just demonstrate what was going to need to be done in order for us to win the game.
Juwan, guys like, people don't really get to see guys like Johnny and Quentin a lot, obviously, in games, but what can you kind of tell people about those guys in practice or behind the scenes? What are some things about those guys that people don't know?
They're definitely probably one of the biggest parts of this program. You know, those guys, you know, they always keep the spirits up, and we always tell them that they're like the most important people on the team. You know, whenever one of them's not traveling with us, we always recognize it. We always tell them we wish they were there, and I think just the way they go about every day, knowing that sometimes they're not going to get in the game. You know, obviously, when it's coming down to the wire, coaches are really looking that way. But at the same time, they give just as much as everybody else does, knowing that. So I think, you know, that just deserves admiration on their part.
When Johnny first transferred here, he was talking about wanting to come here and learn about coaching at this level, and you know, with hopes of maybe becoming a coach one day. Do you see some things in Johnny that might lead to a successful coaching career down the line?
I definitely do. Just even when we're going through practice, if he sees something, he'll let whoever it is know, and he'll do it in a way that you can almost see him being a coach. I don't know how to really explain it, but if you saw it, you would know exactly what I was talking about.
You mentioned a little bit the impact that Yogi and Troy had on you. Is there anything you learned from those guys that you've tried to pass on to some of the younger guys as you've stepped into a leadership role the past couple of years?
Yeah, especially just about working hard. I told them they're not really working hard until you meet somebody that's actually working hard. For myself, I knew I wasn't going to the league after freshman year, but Yogi and Troy, those guys were going that direction, and so I knew what they were working for, and they were working extremely hard. And I always thought I considered myself a hard worker, but it was nothing compared to what those guys were doing. We would go through a 2.5-hour practice, and right afterwards, they would either be doing extra stretching in the weight room, or shooting, or doing whatever, playing one-on-one, trying to get better with certain moves and things like that. And back then, I couldn't see myself doing that at all, but now I do.
Juwan, is there anything that you wish you had known going to freshman year that could have helped you through your journey?
Well, there's a lot of things, but I think the main things would be, I wish I knew what real hard work was. Like I said before, I thought I always was, but I didn't really realize it until seeing those guys. And then I also wish I knew how to take criticism from my peers. That was a big thing with me, especially because growing up just hearing from my mom and dad and like people around them in the military, I could always take authority from those older than me, but it was when my peers tried to talk to me where I just had an attitude problem. I really don't know where it came from or why I had it, but I just couldn't do it. And even sometimes I would just blankly stare at like Max and Yogi, and they would wonder what was up, and I wouldn't tell them because I just didn't want to hear from them, just because I was like, dude, you're only like 2 or 3 years older than me, you don't get to tell me what to do. But it was just something I had to overcome, and I think I've done that.
Okay, I got to get him. We've got early practice, so that's why.